April 2019. Mombasa, Kenya. A city of sun, sea, and hidden shadows. In its crowded streets, a young woman is found, unconscious. She will never speak another word. Her name was Margaret Kilelu Omollo, a mother, a scholar, a friend to many. She had once walked the halls of Flinders University in Australia, filled with dreams of a brighter future. But within months of returning home, she would be gone. Margaret's story is not just one of loss. It is one of silence. Because from the moment she was found, she never uttered a single word again. Her truth was buried with her. Was it fate, illness, or something far more sinister? Tonight, we reopen the case to ask the questions no one dared to ask. What really happened to Margaret Kilelu Omollo? Hello and welcome back to Murder Mystery Kenya, your home for the deepest, most gripping true crime and mystery stories from right here in Kenya and beyond. First, a huge thank you to all our amazing subscribers. Your support means the world to us. Every like, every comment, and every share helps keep these incredible stories alive. If you're new here, karibu sana. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, like the video, and drop a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts and theories. Your support helps us dig deeper, uncover the truth, and tell even more chilling stories you won't find anywhere else. Now, let's dive into today's mystery. Every story of tragedy begins with a story of promise. Before the silence, before the questions, there was Margaret, a daughter, a sister, a friend, a woman whose light shone brightly in the lives of those around her. Born in Kenya, Margaret grew up with the same hopes as many young girls. Dreams of education, of family, of building a future beyond what her circumstances might allow. Those who knew her remember her laugh, her kindness, and a drive that seemed unstoppable. A friend described her like this: Margaret was the type of person who would never let you feel alone. She was brilliant, but more than that, she cared. She cared so deeply about people. Her brilliance in the classroom did not go unnoticed. Teachers spoke of her as gifted, focused, and determined to carve a life of purpose. Education for Margaret was never just a goal. It was the path to transformation. That path would eventually lead her across continents to Australia. At Flinders University in Adelaide, Margaret pursued her studies, representing not just herself, but the hopes of her family back home in Kenya. For many in her community, she was a beacon, proof that dreams could indeed take flight. Life abroad was not always easy. The struggle of being far from home, of adapting to a new culture, of balancing studies with the ache of distance, Margaret knew these challenges well. Yet she flourished. She became part of a tight-knit Kenyan-Australian community, students who leaned on each other in moments of hardship and celebrated victories together. In Australia, Margaret's life blossomed. She graduated from Flinders University, a milestone that marked years of sacrifice, discipline, and resilience. Returning home to Kenya, she began her career as a nurse with Amref Kenya. It was more than a job. For her, nursing was a calling, a way to give back, to heal, to serve. While Margaret pursued her mission in healthcare, she had also found love. She married Dr. Steve Omollo, a trichologist and the CEO of the Nairobi Trichology and Hair Loss Center. Together, they were a couple driven by purpose, one dedicated to saving lives, the other committed to restoring dignity and confidence through his medical practice. Their lives intertwined, two ambitious paths merging into one family journey. They were building a home filled with love, laughter, and the joy of raising two sons. For Margaret, nothing mattered more than being both a devoted mother and a woman whose work made an impact. Her colleagues at AMREF remember her dedication, her patience, her compassion, and her family, her unwavering love. Those closest to her believed she was destined for more, a career that could touch countless lives. But life is rarely a straight line. Behind the joy and promise, there were struggles. Family obligations called her back to Kenya. The vibrant life she had built abroad was soon shadowed by loss. Dr. Steve, her husband, passed away suddenly. His death left Margaret a widow, her sons fatherless. The tragedy shook her to the core. Friends remember her grief as overwhelming, but also her courage. Even in mourning, she carried herself with quiet strength. It was a devastating blow. Yet she pressed on, for her children, for her family, for the future she still believed in. Those around her could see the pain, but also the determination in her eyes. By late 2018, Margaret had returned home to Kenya. A homecoming that should have been filled with comfort and family warmth, but instead, it marked the beginning of a dark, unforeseen chapter. A chapter that would end in silence. She had lived a life of promise, of love, achievement, and resilience. But the storm was coming, and soon, everything would change. On the morning of February 21st, 2019, Margaret Kilelu left her home in Tena Estate, Nairobi. She was dressed in a long grey dress and a black jacket. It was around 10 a.m. She told no one where she was going. That would be the last time her family saw her. Phone calls went unanswered. Hours turned into a night of silence. By the next day, family and friends were alarmed. Margaret was not a woman to vanish. She was a professional nurse at AMREF, a widowed mother of 2 boys, the kind of person who always checked in. But she had disappeared without a trace. Her loved ones scoured Nairobi, hospitals, morgues, police stations. WhatsApp groups lit up with her photo. Missing person, Margaret Kilelu. Still, there was no sign. Days later, a call came, not from Nairobi, but from Mombasa, over 480 kilometers away. Margaret had been found, not walking home, not calling for help, but unconscious, lying near a petrol station in Bamburi, Mombasa. It was a good Samaritan who stumbled upon her. That person, whose identity remains vague, took her to a nearby facility before she was referred to Coast General Hospital. At the hospital, she was admitted to the intensive care unit. Hospital administrators confirmed she was unconscious when admitted. Dr. Iqbal Kandwala, chief administrator at Coast General, told reporters she had been transferred from a private hospital in Kisauni before arriving at CGH. She underwent CT scans and a series of tests. Doctors considered several possibilities: a blood infection, possible intoxication, or even poisoning. But none of these were confirmed publicly. What was clear was that Margaret could not speak. She was silent. The discovery in Mombasa raised more questions than answers. How had she traveled nearly 500 kilometers from Nairobi to Mombasa without alerting anyone? Why was she found collapsed near a petrol station? Who, if anyone, was with her in those missing days? Police at Kadzandani station opened a file, but no conclusive answers emerged. In the ICU, Margaret's condition briefly stabilized. Doctors noted improvements, raising hope that she might recover and, finally, explain what had happened. Family members clung to that possibility. The community rallied again, just as they had after her husband's death, pooling resources for hospital bills and standing in solidarity. Messages of prayer flooded from both Kenya and Australia, where Margaret had studied at Flinders University. But in a cruel twist, her health deteriorated again. On April 11, 2019, Margaret passed away at Coast General Hospital. She never regained her voice. Not a single word was spoken about her disappearance, her journey to Mombasa, or what she endured before collapsing. Her death left her 2 young sons as orphans, their father buried just 6 months earlier, their mother now gone under tragic and mysterious circumstances. Margaret's disappearance ended in discovery, but discovery did not bring clarity. Instead, it deepened the mystery. How did she get to Mombasa? What happened in those missing days? And why, even in her final hours, did silence linger where answers should have been?
Mimi ni mkubwa wa Margaret ambaye alipotea. So juzi on Sunday nilikuwa napanga niende Nairobi. Sasa ilipofika ile basi kutafuta huko Kilifi tukakosa, zilikuwa zimejaa. Mimi nikaorganize nikabukia Mombasa. Lakini kuna kitu ilikuwa ni kama inafanya na delay. Tulipokuwa tuna communicate na sister yangu Masi ilikuwa kama yupo wapi na ilikuwaje mpaka anapotea, kama kuna possibility yote alipotelea wapi. Ndio ikabidi akaniambia hebu ngoja kwanza, naona kuna message hapo. Sasa hiyo message ilipoingia akaniambia naona amepatikana wapi, Coast General Hospital. Kidogo akatuma picha. Mimi nilifurahi sana, tukaanza ni kama kuomba, ikabidi
When Margaret was found unconscious in Mombasa, the case immediately landed on the desks of police at Kadzandani. But what began as a missing persons file quickly turned into something far murkier. A good Samaritan who discovered Margaret near a petrol station in Bamburi walked into Kadzandani police station. His statement set the investigation in motion. The entry described a woman in distress, unresponsive, with no identification on her. Police arranged her transfer to Coast General Hospital, officially logging the case as a missing person turned medical emergency. At the same time, Margaret's family had already reported her missing in Nairobi. That earlier file, listing her disappearance in February 2019, now intersected with the Kadzandani report. For investigators, the puzzle became larger. How had a Nairobi disappearance ended on the streets of Mombasa? But the links stopped there. There was no immediate explanation for her travel or companions. The question police couldn't answer was simple. How did Margaret get here? According to credible reports, police tried to trace whether she traveled by bus, train, or private car, whether any companions were involved, if she had made contact with acquaintances in Mombasa. Yet no CCTV footage, ticket records, or public witness accounts were ever disclosed. The file remained a skeleton. Reports without evidence, questions without follow-up. By April 11, 2019, when Margaret passed away at Coast General Hospital, police had not named a suspect, issued findings, or upgraded the case to criminal status. There were no public statements from the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, DCI. No arrests were made. The case simply faded from the docket, overshadowed by her death. Her relatives, already reeling from grief, found themselves in another battle, the silence of law enforcement. To them, the lack of answers felt like abandonment. The police had opened the file. But when Margaret died, so too did the investigation. To this day, her family and the community are left with nothing but questions. Margaret Kilelu Omollo's journey ended on April 11, 2019, but her story did not. Across oceans, friends, family, and strangers stood together, refusing to let her memory vanish into silence. She was a student, a mother, a friend, and a dreamer, but she was also a reminder of how fragile life can be and how easily unanswered questions can haunt those left behind. To this day, we do not know the full truth of what happened in those final days. The investigation remains unfinished. The silence remains heavy. And yet, Margaret's legacy continues in the strength of her community and in the future of the 2 boys she left behind. Her story is not just a mystery, It is a call to remember, a call to protect, and a call to demand justice for those whose voices are no longer here to speak. This is not the end of Margaret's story. This is only the beginning of keeping her memory alive.